And Arnie Sherman.
You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. Arnie Sherman, it's a good Sunday morning.
You know, it's a great Sunday morning. There's no snow when we look out the window. Golf is gearing up.
Right.
And the most important thing has happened. Your unruly, disobedient, delinquent dog, Henry, has returned from reform school. And I want to hear how it went.
So he went to Run Your Pack, Hank, as we call him in the household.
Yeah, Hank.
He's a mix of everything. He did 3.5 weeks at Run Your Pack over in Clinton. And I got to be honest with you, he came back still Henry, but trainable, like trained. And so Kathy is starting to kind of reinforce the training.
That's fantastic. In just 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Because you were considering maybe a new home life for Hank.
Well, you and I live in a ranch area, so
right.
I was thinking of maybe just dropping him off over
at some ranch, dressed like a sheep.
And just say, hey, you've inherited a new dog.
Yeah.
No, but he's good.
Well, you know, it's really important for that sort of thing because I just flew back from both L.A. and then I was up in Vancouver, and I noticed how well-behaved the dogs were that people took on flights and on planes.
Yeah.
And I know I could never take my dog. I just couldn't imagine my dogs, you know, acting that calm and relaxed unless they were heavily sedated.
Right.
You know, as the Ramones would say, I want to be sedated.
Right.
But and I remember from the tour that we took of the new airport facility here, they have a dog relief station right in there, which we've never had before.
Isn't that incredible?
So the airports are getting more pet-friendly for sure, and it's going to open in May. I can't wait for the new airport to open because we drive by it all the time, and it's this sleek, new, modern, $67 million building. And we're going to have today a conversation about how things are going and where they're going and when are we going to be able to get in there and, you know, when are we going to be able to take advantage of this new state-of-the-art airport facility.
Yeah, I can't wait. You and I love flying, too, and we love travel, so we always have a good, lively conversation with whether it was Chris or now it's going to be Brian Ellestad and Tim Damrow from the airport. Brian's a new executive director. Right.
And I noticed that even for the announcement on February 22nd that our old director came back for that, which I thought was very nice.
I saw him, actually.
I didn't see him when he came back, but I knew he came back. I read about that he came back, and I thought it was great that Chris was back in town.
Chris Jensen.
Because he was the person that was there when this thing was first, you know, conceptualized.
Right. Chris was very involved and still is involved, but now we know he's in Reno.
Right.
At their airport. And he's from there, so he's back home.
He's back home finishing off, I think, his retirement, you know, the amount of years he needs for his retirement program. I do have to tell you one quick air story. I actually helped the safety officer that at the airport in Seattle escort an unruly passenger off the plane 2 nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. We were already on the tarmac for takeoff, and the flight attendants decided that they had to get this guy off the plane because he was a bit belligerent and irritating a lot of people around him in a very vociferous and vulgar manner.
All right. Well, look, we have a lot to talk about with our two guests, Tim and Brian, from the Missoula International Airport. Back after this. Okay, Arnie, we are back with our guests, Brian Ellestad, Airport Director, and Tim Damrow, Deputy Director of the Missoula International Airport.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure having you here today with us. We're really looking forward to this conversation because Scott and I are major consumer travelers, and we like the most upscale experience that we could possibly have in the airport. And I've always liked the airport that we already have. The terminal we already have is perfectly fine, and we always advocate, you know, how easy and good it is compared to most everywhere else that we travel. But now we're going to have a really elevated experience when the new airport opens. So tell us a little about where we're at and how this thing's going to unfold.
Well, we're getting close. We're in kind of the final stages. Hopefully, we're looking at early May to open the doors. But it's been a long road from start to finish, but it's great to kind of see the end here and near. At the end of the day, I think the customers are going to love it. I mean, it's so much more intuitive. You don't have to go up the stairs, down the stairs. Hopefully, don't go through the revolving doors and start the process all over again like we have in the current terminal. But I think the general public will really like it.
And their animals too. They're service dogs.
Yep, we have a service animal relief area in the new terminal.
Well, we have escalators. Most people who've been born and raised in Missoula have not seen an escalator since Herberger had one in one of the buildings. That was the last escalator that I saw.
You are correct. You're excited. I'm excited. My kids are going to be excited.
Right?
A lot of kids are going to be excited about the escalator.
I noticed, there's a pet relief station, which really puts us into the next century because a lot of people are traveling. I haven't been on a flight in the last year. There wasn't at least one or two pets on the flight. People are traveling more and more with their fur children, or fur babies, as they call them. And we're going to have that at the airport as well. So, Brian, you said it's been a long process. This is a $67 million endeavor?
Yep.
And when did we launch?
So Tim's got better with the numbers than I am, but yes, the first phase, $67 million, will be under budget for when we do that. But will
you repeat that? Under budget? We never hear that terminology, under budget, right?
Never.
We did it.
We'll be definitely under budget and on time. So
that's fantastic.
We have a kudos to our contractor, the entire team, the design team, but everybody's worked so well together on this project.
You guys are our heroes. No, this is a big deal. Under budget and a beautiful new facility, and you guys have been there from the start to ultimately the completion.
Right.
Right?
And that's going to make up for some of the, what I think is, some of the unintended consequences of this last couple of years of COVID.
Right.
You got some people that are a little bit more unruly. I've experienced those on flights. You have airlines loading the planes up. The last 4 flights I've flown, there was wait list and they were oversold, so every seat was taken. The fact that they've unbundled a lot of the airfares mean a lot of people are schlepping a lot more luggage with them than trying to get it on the plane. This notion, I don't think anybody that flies anymore, Scott, can count because this is one personal item and one carry on and they got a backpack and 2 things and a briefcase and it gets a little difficult for the agents at the gate to be, to extend the right kind of courtesies when literally every person is operating that way. You mentioned earlier the fact that on the flights, lots of people who want to show some disdain to wearing masks will get a drink and sip it the whole flight so they can try to keep their mask off the whole flight and that sort of thing.
What are you guys seeing? What are the stories you're hearing from the front line?
Oh, man. So, for those that can count their carry-ons correctly, what you can also see is people that wear their bags as well. So, if you're over budget on your items, I might as well wear my 6 coats and 8 pairs of pants.
Yeah.
So, if there's a will, there's a way. If someone wants their extra stuff on, they'll get it on. And if you, unfortunately, want to work around some of the requirements, you'll figure out a way to do it.
That's a problem. So, but let's talk about the good side of things. Those are all the bad things. We've got that off of our chest, now. What about this terminal excites you compared to the previous terminal? I mean, what are the things? What are the amenities?
Brian.
And what are the operational things, Brian, that you think will be appealing to both customers and the people that work there?
So I think it just starts out in the parking lot. You drive by. If you drive by at night and you see the lights on, you can see through the building. You kind of park in the parking lot, and you can probably figure out where you're going before you actually get to the front curb. You can see the ticket counter. You can see the escalator. You can see the upstairs. Oh, there's the TSA area. So you kind of know where you're going. So your ease, you kind of takes down your level of anxiety before you kind of get there.
Totally.
And then once you're, through the checkpoint, which is now, it's designed for 5 lanes. We'll have our existing 3, so it's roomy. And then I guess what excites me as I walk through, the first thing I see is a Kettle House Cold Smoke Lounge right off the bat.
Brian, from a parking perspective, how much has the capacity of parking increased?
It's plus 300 spaces.
Got it.
So it went from slightly 11 to 1,200 into that 1,300, 1,400, 1,500 range.
And how much is short-term versus long-term? What's the percentages?
I don't know percentage, but that's 145. 150 is the short term, and then the rest is
probably about 10%.
Yeah,
10%.
That's a good.
By the way,
ratio.
The nice thing about our long-term parking is that it's not that far, right? Like the distance between short-term and long-term is really not that bad. It's really just wide. It's just distance from a width perspective,
right?
From
Well, us in the media had a chance to have sort of a sneak preview. And the coal smoke area looks very appealing, and it's designed so you can actually take advantage of it, even if you're not flying or waiting for somebody to arrive, or after they've already left and you need a beer because they've overstayed their welcome. Right? You've set it up in a way that the public can interact with it pretty directly.
Yeah, I think when you say at the end of the day, probably what I think we probably have the same answer, real close to the same answer. We're probably most excited about our pre-security observation deck. So you can go downstairs, right by security where you meet your significant other, and you can grab a coffee, you can grab a beer, soda, go upstairs,
right?
And you actually can see the airfield, and
we're going to
pipe in the air traffic control tower overhead, so you can actually look on a moving map, see the airplane, you can hear the airplane say,
"Really,
Flight 4141, you're cleared to land." So you can actually be part of the experience.
Is that done in other airports, or are we one of the first to do that?
A lot of airports, it seems, after September 11th have there's always been this disconnect between the traveling public and those who want to come witness kind of aviation and that whole kind of magic of the operation that's kind of been now separated behind the security checkpoint. So I think airports now are trying to do it. You see kind of some of the public decks and services are offering. This is kind of a whole other approach, hopefully taking it one step further and saying we're creating the whole experience. Come out, look at airplanes.
Are there going to be any clubs? Like I know Delta and United have clubs. Are we just not a big enough airport to accommodate that?
It's a club, but there's no membership fee. Anyone can participate. So
softball too.
I do have to say to Brian and Tim, way back in the last century at one point, before there was a security checkpoint, growing up in New York, it was a regular occurrence to take and stop at the airport and either go in or park your car at the runway and watch the planes take off and land.
I used to do that all the time with my dad.
And it was exciting for kids to see that, particularly.
We all remember it.
Yeah, we all remember that, and now we're going to be able to do it again.
Arnie, can anybody here remind us of what air travel was like pre 9/11 in terms of the security, the checkpoint security, and just getting through to the gate? Because I was trying to do that the other day with my buddy in Miami. I don't even remember it.
Let me tell you one quick story, then I'll let the experts answer. I was living in Kansas City when they just had built their new airport, and you could park next to the gate that you were leaving from.
Oh,
that's how they designed it. They designed it as a big semicircle, and the parking was like that. So you could look up or find out you'd be leaving from gate 12. You parked by gate 12. You walked in. You showed him your ticket. You didn't even have to show an ID. The ticket was your ID. If you had a ticket, you could get on the plane.
I've got it.
And you just walk in and get on the plane. That's what it was like.
Well, I want to hear what I want to hear. I have another story, but let's hear these guys. What was it like? So does anybody remember? Pre 9/11.
Yeah.
And I don't even think, from
young guy,
my recollection, I don't even think you needed a ticket to get through the checkpoint. I think it was open.
No, you didn't need a ticket.
Anyone went through.
Yep. Was there a screener?
There was.
But what was it screening for? The same stuff? No,
just to a lower level. I mean,
but
I think it was just a metal detector.
Metal detector.
Right, that was it.
But
80s.
So going through the walkthrough, but how about was there a conveyor belt?
Yep, X-ray.
There was
an X-ray, walk-through metal detector.
But not in the 70s and 80s. Just point that out. They did not have anything. That's too way back. 90s. Okay. You walk in with your bag. Nobody screens your bag. You could check it or you could carry it on. They didn't check anything. I mean, they looked at your ticket. You had a ticket. You were good.
I think I grew up in Minnesota, Wisconsin. I remember my grandmother coming back from San Francisco, and this would have been in the 80s. And I think I met her on the tarmac when she got off the airplane.
Right,
back in the day.
Do that. Yeah. The other thing was you couldn't get tickets in those days any other way than get them at the airport. You would go to the airport, and they would give you the ticket. And once you had the ticket, you had to show them something to get the ticket. You were good.
You were good, and you could check your luggage in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I have a photo. Okay, I was in Miami last week visiting family and friends. A photo of I was given a deputy sheriff's wallet card with a badge, and it was my cousin's name, Gary, but it was my picture. And he gave it to me, and he goes, "Do you remember in 1996 you flew for me from New York to Salt Lake City so that I could hit the Million Mile Club?" And I go, I do remember that very well. And he goes, this is all you used was a sheriff's card, like a sheriff's badge. and I didn't need anything else.
No, well, in those days you could if Kathy wasn't going and your son Tim wanted to go, they could just hand Tim the ticket and just say Tim's going instead. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to be the person.
A voucher.
It was a voucher.
It was like like a voucher.
What else? So, all right. So,
okay, that's enough reminiscing. But something that's never going to happen again.
Tim and Brian from the airport here.
Well, actually, it may. At some point, you might have a little chip embedded, and you just walk through a thing, and it reads off
Big Brother.
Card. Yeah,
sure. RF technology. This is their first time on our show, Arnie.
Yeah, we're going to scare them away after this.
Well, let's start with Brian. What got you interested in aviation? What was the thing that really drew you to this? I'm going to ask you the same question, Tim, so you can think about the answer. But what was the impetus? What was the start?
So for me, it was probably my aunt who worked for Northwest Airlines. And as a kid, she would every Christmas come down and give us Christmas gifts, and it'd be something from South Korea or France, or she was always non-revving to wherever. And every Christmas, it was something from someplace exotic, someplace different that I would have never even thought of going to. So that was probably what got me I got to look into this for a career when the day comes.
And what was your first job in the industry?
So I got out of college, and I answered a random little bitty ad that said, airline job openings, please apply. And I drove down to, we lived in La Crosse, Wisconsin, drove down to Milwaukee. It was a new startup airline. It was like in the back of a strip mall office. And I walk up the stairs, and I do an interview, and I get the job, and I go back for training. So it was a small commuter airline that was literally opening up.
Were you doing everything, like hauling luggage?
I did everything.
So you did everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what is everything? Luggage.
So I got the honor of working there 16 years. So I started checking people. So I would be one person working a 19-seat aircraft. I would check them in, take their bags, check in all 18, 19 people, run to the gate,
right,
get them on the airplane, load the bags, marshal them out, and reverse order every day, 3 times a day.
That's like a limo driver. So Tim, what was your founding experience?
Oh, probably pretty similar to Brian's, actually. I had a grandpa who was a World War II navigator, would always just have awesome pictures, stories, airplanes around the house. And I was the stereotypical kid at the airport climbing the fence to look at airplanes when anyone was flying in. So I grew up in Helena. And I don't know, it was just something magical about it that just kind of, I've always loved it.
What was your first job?
First job in aviation is actually here at the Missoula Airport. So
really?
Similar experience to Brian. I was doing check-in, loading bags, gates for Big Sky Airlines at that time.
Were you a math student in high school?
I was not.
That's why you're not an engineer. Wondering how do they stay up in the air? Your logistics and your operations. So
did you have them, like I had a B-51, Mustang, P-51 Mustang hanging from a string in my bedroom, and I'd put it together, and I realized I didn't have a career in engineering because there was always parts left over. It was finished. I had 9 parts that I didn't put in there. Did you have planes hanging in your room?
Even better now, Arnie, I have them in my office.
Oh, now.
Do you really?
And he gets paid for this.
Wait a minute, where do they come from?
All over. I get a new one from Dad. He gives me the World War II collection every year. I have a bunch that I are going to put in the new office at the new airport, but I have quite an extensive model airport.
You too, Brian?
Look at those. I don't have them anymore.
I have airplanes as well, but nothing hanging currently, but I might have to change that in the new office.
So I've gone down a rabbit hole on social media, whether it be TikTok or Instagram, where I'm getting a bunch of airplane videos every day that are people landings and takeoffs, okay? And then they're now showing you pilot perspectives of landing a plane. So the cameras along these things. A, are we capable of landing an A380 at our airport? I know we're capable of landing a 747 because the former president landed.
Yeah.
Landed and somehow stayed. No, landed. And are we capable of bringing those big wide bodies?
So what was the Emirates one that came in? Was that
an A330?
330?
Yep.
That's big, wide,
big.
But not the double-decker.
No.
So I believe physically the runway is capable to support it. Our limitation here probably in Missoula would be our taxiways. I know a lot of airports have issues just with that large of an aircraft, how wide the landing gear are, physically maneuvering it once it's landed to get back on the runway. But again, comes down to weight as well. If it's an empty cargo, on a cargo mission, probably a little bit of a different story.
But, different, right?
Yep.
But we landed whatever Air Force One is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Brian, you mentioned, Brian, that this is phase one. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have other phases depending on, I guess, demand, right? So what happens to the building that we're now using, the beloved, semicircle piece of cheese looking kind of building? What's going to happen to that?
So our current plan, which we hope to take to the board here at the end of this month, is we've opened bids for phase 2, which would be right now we have a temporary baggage claim in the current that we put in the current phase, but a real dedicated baggage claim in the next phase, 4 more gates, rental cars. So in order to build that, we have to actually demolish our current building.
Right.
So that will be deconstructed. The plan is right now start pretty much as soon as we open the new building. So I would guess summer, early fall of this year we'll start the
demolition. And then you'll be able to build it and then knock a wall out and it'll all be connected? Is that what's going to happen?
We have a smart contractor, so they actually put a double wall in the current building.
Arnie, I have dibs on the massage chair. The coin-operated one?
They're coming with us.
They are?
Yeah.
Oh,
you should sell the parts of the old building to people that want to have a collection. They do that all the time.
Yeah, they do.
I have a piece of a seat from old Yankee Stadium. Some people may.
I definitely don't want a piece of a plane.
Careful what you wish for. I have a bunch of bricks in my office from the old building. So
do you really?
If you're interested, I have.
Let's do a fundraiser. Let's auction off the bricks for Christmas for kids. Okay, we'll do that next year.
We could do that. Okay, so that's going to come in and that will enhance the capacity.
Yes,
but up until that happens. Tell me about the passenger experience. You walk through the door now, and from what I saw on the tour, you're not going to have to search for your airline anymore, right? Like where is Southwest and where is where is American and how all that kind of stuff. Is that correct?
Yep. All the counters will be the first thing you walk in. You'll see all the ticket counters just one in a row. You won't have to peek around columns or around nicks and crannies to find your ticket counter. So yes, it'll be one in a row. Check in, and you get to drop your bag off behind the ticket counter instead of hauling it.
Like a real airport. That's fantastic.
It's frightening. When Arnie and I took that tour, what was it, November? That was it's so changed now. I wasn't at our last Destination Missoula meeting, but gosh, everybody was incredibly impressed. Are you guys impressed with how it came out?
Absolutely.
Very much. Every day.
That's awesome.
Well, one of the things I do have to commend you for is that you're doing this in a way that is not interfering much with the current passenger flow of things. And if you're pointing at Tim, thank you, Tim. I was just in Vancouver Monday, and the escalators up and down, which take all of the traffic, are shut down and closed, so you can't walk down them. And the only way to get from up to down is you have to wait for the elevators. Can you imagine how many hundreds of people were waiting for these little elevators that were only designed to be backups for handicapped people? That's how everybody has to go from the lower level to the upper level while they're I don't know how long it's taking them bits by bits and pieces. They're trying to renovate the airport, and it's a complete disaster for any a customer experience.
ADA compliant. And trying to do it in bits and pieces?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm just saying. I'm trying.
Is that legal?
It's raining. I'm trying to get a car. You got to go down and get a car. I'm upstairs. How do I get down? Elevator. What about the escalator? Escalators are closed. No stairs. No nothing. Elevator. The only way to get down. And they were the smaller elevators designed for. So
I get it.
You avoid all that. We don't have people coming in and seeing all kinds of "Pardon our dust" signs everywhere.
And that was one of the things we looked at when we were kind of evaluating the building. Does it make sense to remodel? Do we expand the current one? But that was the huge factor of what's going to be the less disruptive for traveling public in the community. And it was really just start fresh.
Well, plus you have the other advantage that I know a couple of summers ago when we had some of the seasonal airlines coming in, that there were backups because gates weren't available, right? And there was occasionally planes weren't able to discharge passengers.
I would say I would say that we had gates available. It was staffing by certain airlines that just didn't have enough staffing to handle all the airplanes.
That will go unnamed. Okay.
But will we be able to with the ticket counter setup? Will there be some interchangeable staff? So if one airline is loading 200 people up at one time and one airline has no flights leaving, that maybe there can be some assistance offered.
So I'll answer this in two ways. So the airlines you're trained on, every airline employee is trained. They can only do the
one airline.
With that said, we did build in workarounds for that. So we have something called Amadeus. It's a shared use system that we're installing. So let's say you're out there on the tarmac waiting for a gate and something's delayed due to maintenance or just late arriving. They can go to any gate now and park because we have their computer system at any and all gates.
Right. Oh, well, that's a big improvement.
Right.
That's huge.
But that's whether they have enough staff to park that second airplane.
Right.
But we've designed the flexibility for them. Now it's up to them. They have to execute it, which, if that makes any sense.
Have there been any other improvements around the airport, like in the de-icing areas or any of that sort of thing? Or is it just the terminal is the main focus of all the improvement?
Coming soon. So we're looking at projects to expand kind of de-icing capabilities as well as ramp and apron around the terminal.
What would that look like? Without giving us too much information, where would they do it? Someplace different on the... No, you can't, right?
So really just expanding what we have today and reorienting how the aircraft are parked compared to how the building fits.
Well, with changing weather patterns...
Yes.
I mean, I've been in Minneapolis sometimes where it's an hour and a half wait to get de-iced, and then you miss your connections. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're stuck on the plane, and you're looking out the window watching why can't they do it faster than this and that sort of thing.
Yeah, let me ask. Well, you guys are big airport guys, obviously big aviation buffs like we are. Next to our beautiful facility, where else around the country do you admire? What other facilities do you admire for their design and ease of use? Because
I know you went and looked at a bunch of them, right?
Yeah, I believe we went to well over a dozen. We probably learned what not to do more than what to do. And
yeah, that's important.
This was really important. But I don't know, some of the ones we were impressed with. I think you went to Payne Field. You saw that one.
Where's that?
Just north of Seattle. So it's a reliever airport that just got commercial service. Duluth was a brand new build that I went up and visited. I dragged Chris up there in January. He yelled at me for that.
We have radio stations there. Shout out to our Duluth sister station. No, that's good to hear. Really, a new facility.
It was brand new.
Oh, you're a Minnesota boy.
I'm a Minnesota boy.
Got it.
I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't like the rebuild of Salt Lake City. It used to be easy to get to terminal.
They're making improvements.
You either love it or you hate it.
They're putting a train in. They have to, right? They're putting something in to connect. Aren't they?
They're adding to the concourse so you won't have all those busable gates. That'll go away.
They stink. But I think going from point A to point B, there's some other people mover because you can't do it.
Well, I can tell you, when I landed the other day, I landed at the end of A, and I had to get to the end of B on the other end. It was a 30-minute connect, and I was like one of the last ones to get to the plane.
I think they're building on the other side of where the Sky Club is. Or something where it's going to be easier.
There's different Sky Clubs now. It's not just the one in that main terminal that was.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Okay,
they've
that's
changed
good.
it all
That's
around.
Our biggest inconvenience.
But it just forces me, almost on every flight that I can, I'm going to sit on the front of the plane so I can get off and not be way in the back and waiting to get off and behind everyone.
What do you guys think of? Have you been to LaGuardia? The new terminal? You've been there. I
like the new terminal because as you're walking off, at least from the Delta concourse, you can see Citi Field and see the baseball stadium. So that's kind of a nice, because they did the walkway all glass on one side that faces the baseball stadium and the bay and all of that there. So I thought it was pretty nice.
Can we lay claim now, fellas, to having the nicest airport, let's say, in the region? Like Bozeman, Great Falls, Helena, Billings,
Kalispell,
Spokane, Kalispell. This is the best one.
I would argue that so we just had all the airline managers from the state here, and we took them through it.
Did you?
They were pretty impressed. Yeah, they liked it.
What were some of the things that they talked about that they liked?
I think just the thoughtfulness of design. As we mentioned, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what's the next piece of construction going to look like again, so we're not inconveniencing if and when we expand next. We purposely placed aircraft gates, building connections in areas where it's going to be easy to go into a subsequent phase of construction and say, hey, sorry about your escalators, we're taking these out of service, or your gate.
Right.
Oops.
Right.
We've hopefully planned through a lot.
Well, the other cool thing is that fact there's so much glass, and it gives you such a beautiful view, particularly for people who are coming here for the first time. They'll be in love with Missoula. Plus, that glass can shade, so you can save energy costs in the building because it gets hot in there at you guys probably run air conditioning even in the winter sometimes.
That we do.
Yeah, so
No, I think
I could go to work for the airline. I know enough about the operation that I could get a baggage job.
You and
there,
I both,
probably.
we would love it. Boys, question. So, Brian, you now need to figure out a way from where you live here in the Missoula Valley to cut across, to not rely on reserve. Blue Mountain or something.
The good thing is I plan my day and I come early and leave late, so I do miss it.
Both of these guys are the hardest working guys.
It shows. I mean, the airport shows. I'm a huge advocate and a big supporter of
Yes.
our airport and our airport operation.
We have a lot to be proud of.
I want to flip to another question for them
Please.
for a minute. I want to talk about travel in general. Like in Missoula, we're coming back to over 450,000 departures, right? Which is the most we've ever had here.
Yep, 453 was our record year in 19.
But I noticed in some of the data that both Bozeman and Kalispell have more departures.
Yep. So the pandemic. So who would have thought the pandemic would actually grow air service? So for them, if they had National Park in their name, or any airport in the country that had National Park in their name, the airlines had plenty of planes, they had plenty of pilots, they had payroll protection during the pandemic, so they could afford to kind of just throw air service at a leisure market. Right. So that's just helped them grow.
Right. And now we have problems with pilots. Right.
Opposite problem: the high fuel
and high fuel costs. I mean, I was in L.A. It was $6 a gallon for gas in L.A. In Vancouver, if you can convert liters to gallons, it's $6.50 a gallon just for regular. And I don't know what jet fuel is, but I'm sure jet fuel is going
right up
through the roof as well.
Yeah, I know a tanker of fuel right now, just from 1 week to the next, they had a $6,000 jump just in getting a shipment in, for how many gallons are in a tanker, but it was over a $6,000 increase.
By the way, where is the fuel at the airport stored? Is it over by North Star on the south end or the east end of the airport?
You're real close. We have a fuel farm over there that both of our FBOs, fixed base operators, Minuteman and North Star, store their fuel.
Got it. Okay. Good to know.
And they get it right off the Yellowstone pipeline that comes right through Missoula here. And
is that right?
Trucks it over.
They just stick a straw in.
I should know the answer to this, but I don't. Is there any plans for the airport to be renamed, or is it always going to be Johnson Bell Field?
So
I always like to break news.
No.
So we are now the Missoula Montana Airport. Still Johnson Belfield still stands.
Yeah, but you took international because you don't have customs.
Tim? Oh, no customs?
So I think kind of the way we looked at it is, again, kind of going back to what Brian was mentioning about kind of national parks, we really want to communicate with our name why people want to come here.
Right.
And what does Missoula offer? What do we offer this area? And it's really that whole Montana experience. So kind of removing the international piece, everyone, it seemed kind of back in the 70s, 80s, that was a thing of prestige. We're an international airport.
Right.
I think now it kind of goes without saying. If you go to an airport, you can go wherever you want.
Right. One stop anywhere from here.
And so the valuable piece was telling people, well, why do you want to come here? It's Montana.
It's Montana. Let's do a quick ID. Our guests are Tim Damrow and Brian Ellestad from the Missoula Airport. Right?
Montana Airport. Well, I think that's a very important point. I've had 2 international visitors in the last decade who have come here who called me and said, I'm at the airport, come pick me up. And I said, what flight did you arrive on? And they said, Southwest or something. I said, well, where are you? One of them was in Bozeman, and one of them was in Billings. Because their travel agent in China just looked at the map and, whatever. It was, come pick me up.
But Arnie, this is a favorite segment that we used to do with Chris, which is what are the new routes coming here to the Missoula Montana Airport?
That's an interesting, and they'll have obviously
we love that segment.
A chance to answer that. But, with COVID and with airline pilot shortages and Boeing being way backed up and delivering new equipment and a war going on in Europe and all that sort of stuff. I mean, you got to factor all of that into into the growth. But what do we see in 2023 and 2024?
I think 22 will be kind of that, we need to get back to that, 19 record level of travel.
Right.
Which I think even with the pilot shortage and the probably somewhat less flights that we'll have versus last year is, you can see it now. Load factors are 95. I mean, they're full. Everything's on waiting list. Full. So the pendulum next year is going to swing totally opposite way. So we're going to go with that. This industry works as like a pendulum. If you do well, you swing up. If you don't, you take a year off, then you build back up, and you just swing back. So I think 23, 24 will just be probably monster growth years for us.
Right. God willing, that everything stays healthy.
Well, plus the other thing that's working in our favor here, well, if you think more volume is in favor, is that as a result of COVID, there's a lot of remote working going on, and if not fully remote or fully returning, lots of people are working hybrid jobs where they only have to come in a couple of days a week or a couple of days a month. Where we live, 2 of the lots were sold to Microsoft executives whose jobs are in Washington State, but they only have to go into the office a couple of days a week, so they're going to be flying into Missoula.
Perfect.
Yeah. Don't talk too loud. I don't want my staff to hear that. Boys, question for you. When are masks coming off the airplanes, passenger masks? Is it April 18th?
That's the plan right this second.
I think it's great.
I think that'll probably stick unless this another variant goes crazy. But
well, I have a theory about this, and I was telling my friends and colleagues down in Miami last week. Everybody's apprehensive flying anyway, right? Because people are nervous when they fly. It's just the way it is. Then you add the load factor. There's so many people. Then you put a mask on them. It's like for some people, it's holding their mask. It's holding, And I know the health benefit of it. Don't get me wrong, but that's why there's so much heightened aggression. On the flights.
If there was, if like in Canada where you have to have vaccination,
right?
You can't go to a Starbucks there without showing a vaccination card. If everybody's vaccinated, you can see, removing masks, and everybody's in a level playing field. If you don't have that, there's still going to be some, people can still choose to wear masks. And we saw that even before COVID. A lot of Asian who, are accustomed to traveling would wear masks just because they don't want to be exposed to a new flu that they hadn't been exposed to before.
You think are we good at the 18th? I'm looking at Tim right now.
I think so. I mean, that's what's on paper right now, and that's, I guess, as good as it is.
This show's going to air after it's going to air in rerun, so we're
well, it's not going to help me
flying
to London on the 12th, but it may help me coming back on the 21st. Well, we're still going to probably have to show vaccinations coming back into the United States. Do we know? That's not part of your purview anyway.
At the end of the day, as long as they're consistent across the industry,
that's the important part.
You can't go, this state is this and this state is that. It just creates more confusion.
I'm going to tell you one quick story. I won't name what airline it was or whatever, but I showed up to fly up to Vancouver, and they said, we need to see your antigen vaccination. Not vaccination, excuse me, your test, and I showed them, and they said, it's not on our list of acceptable tests, so you can't go. I said, well, let me go. I showed them my vaccination card. I've been vaccinated and boosted and all that. Let me go, and I'll deal with it when I get. No, we can't put you on the plane. You're going to have to go back down out, and there's a place there, and you get the test. It's probably 2 hours to come back. And there was a person at the gate who said, well, I have a test with me. And I talked the gate agent, so let me take the test right on the spot, right in front of him. And I did. And I was negative, and they let me on the plane.
You are resourceful.
He's like the MacGyver.
Well, that's why I don't want to mention the airline, but they probably weren't allowed to do that, but I did it anyway.
Arnie, and our other passion is flying and is food. Talk about the new food that's going to be at the airport. Come on, boys. We know we've had this conversation.
So not only we'll have the Cold Smoke Tavern, we'll have the Kettle House brewery will have actually serve food. So so we have a company that's going to provide all the food for the whole terminal. It'll be branded under Kettle House and Black Roasting Coffee. So you'll be able to get food either pre or post security. The same kitchen will do food, but.
Any chains coming in, like a Chick-fil-A over like Denver?
No chains.
It's all local. We like that.
I don't know this, but how does that affect what food they put it on the plane? For the passengers on the plane?
No, that's a separate company, right?
Totally separate.
Who has that contract?
So usually those are coming out of their hub cities, wherever they're coming
from. So not
from.
us.
No. Salt Lake or a Denver or wherever that aircraft is originating.
We're usually a turn. What do they call it? A turn or a final destination?
No. So the middays would be a turn. The overnights would be remain overnight on RON, and they would just cater stuff. Or they cater it out of their hub, and at night they'd put it on ice, so it's good to go for the next morning.
Any airport? So I always want to know when more flights come in and more airline staff comes in and they're kind of dead. At the end of the day, they're staying at local airports in town. Are there plans with the development over by the airport of having some more hotel space potentially and some more short-term stay space, or are we kind of at capacity?
Well, it's nothing that we're aware of. So we're going through an airport master plan. Well, we'll take a look at our entire property. Who knows? Maybe we'll decide to, go out for bid and put something on our property someplace. But, that's in the future.
Is there room for that?
We own rearrange stuff. I mean, you could probably pull it off.
Arnie, this might be an exclusive we're looking
right
for.
To your house. It'll be perfect.
Arnie, can you imagine? You get into an argument with your wife, you could stay at the airport.
Well, I'm sensitive to that because in the last probably half dozen flights I've had, two of the crews timed out, and they didn't have a replacement crew available. And for an airport like us, we usually don't have backup sitting around here. They're usually in the hub airports, Denver and Salt Lake City. But that was that really disappoints you.
What happens when a mechanical thing needs to happen on an airplane? Like, let's say they can't close a door or whatever. Where are those mechanics coming from?
They'd be a local mechanic from either North Star or Minuteman. So
they're on premises pretty much.
The airlines contract out with local maintenance. They have a certification, make sure they know how to sign off logbooks and are qualified to work on the airplanes. But the airline corporate sets up those contracts, and it's a local mechanic.
And they have to be on call, though, right?
They're either on call. If they're not on site, they're on call.
I've waited at one time for a mechanic to come down from wherever. Or to come from wherever. I'm like,
I was on a Delta.
It's traffic.
I was on a Delta flight when a passenger passed away on the flight.
Ooh.
On the way back to Missoula, and they landed the plane immediately, and it was in Kalispell, and they had to wait you couldn't get off the plane. Couldn't get off the plane to even have a breath of fresh air. Everybody had to stay on the plane until they got the coroner. The county coroner had to come on the flight. Coroner was out fishing. It was a Saturday. So we sat on the plane for about
Montana story.
5 to 6 hours.
What?
Yeah, until the coroner was finally able to come on the plane and pronounce.
Do you have another story kind of equal to that?
No,
I don't think I
can't top that one.
Yep.
Any weddings or births on planes? Or deliveries of children? Not that you can think of?
Not that we've known.
I would love it if you can have a wedding on a flight.
Well, you could on a private plane, probably.
You can?
Charter one.
Yeah, you can charter a plane.
How much of our, by the way, good question, how much of our capacity or flights coming in and out of the airport are private or, private airplanes
and is that
versus
growing?
Commercial?
I know it's grown during the pandemic. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but trying to think of the operation numbers, but it's a substantial amount as the general aviation part of what at the airport. It's greater than the commercial as far as activity goes.
Really?
Yes.
And I always remember in the summer, one of the somebody from the Middle East likes to bring in a.
That was that A330 we were talking about.
Yeah,
that he's an A330. And he stays here for how long? Like he flies a whole group of people in, right?
It was almost a week.
Yeah.
They probably go to pause up.
It went to a different ranch, but same type. Yeah.
The other thing I'm always interested in, I drive by almost every day on Broadway, and I see, the private jets that are there. But how does the smoke jumper planes fit into all of this in terms of schedule? Because they're not always on a set schedule. Obviously, they're coming and going and.
So yeah, they kind of got their whole Forest Service kind of has their own world down at the airport. They're more on the west side of the facility.
Right.
North Star obviously has their kind of firebombing operation that's in their complex on the east side. But again, it's just kind of as demand warrants, they'll fix things in and they just fit in with the normal traffic flow.
And we have all of our air traffic control is done on our site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And are those people harder to find, or there's shortages in the air traffic control industry as well?
We get a lot of retired. So we're a contract tower, not an FAA tower. So we might get a fair amount of FAA controllers who retire, collect their pension and then come our way, or vice versa, who want to get some experience and then go on to the FAA tower. So it's a two-way street.
Is there any new equipment or any new technology? Because we often get fogged in, right? Or it's bad weather, or some kind of. Is there anything that's changing that's going to allow less worry about diversions? On a foggy night.
So I don't think there's anything's changed, but just to kind of remind everybody, we do fog seating at the airport when there's fog rolls in, and we do our best to kind of lift the fog, as we're saying. We actually have pretty good results with that, but the only results are it's got to be kind of colder than 28, 27 degrees. And with global warming, this winters have been a little warmer than that, so we've had less luck this year than we have in years past.
Amazing. When a plane lands in the snow, you guys have to clear off that runway, right? But what happened? They can land. There's still coverage on the tarmac, or the. How does that work?
More or less on the runway, they're keeping that surface pretty much clean and dry.
And dry. Yeah. How do they keep it dry?
Well, maybe not so much dry if it's a wet precipitation,
right?
But out there with brooms, we have de-icer that's proactively applied. Our teams are looking and making sure that they see weather coming. They're prepared for it. They're not reacting to it.
Got it.
Big fans.
Are they blowing? Is anybody blowing up a hurricane?
I don't think so.
That's a reference that you would appreciate.
But you would think, in some ways, as many, many industries have technological advancement, as does the aviation industry for sure. There are some things that are still the same, not problem, but the same challenges have always been. Like, you can have your bag tagged, expedited, and it doesn't always come off first, right? And you can have a situation where the weather is fogging you in, and
right?
You can't take off. Is there a minimum amount of sealing that you need for land? And it's less for taking off and more for landing. Is that correct?
You are correct.
Even though the plane is often computer controlled by that point, right? Mm-hmm. It's the pilot's not really landing it. So you think with all of the the new technology. I mean, I was just in L.A. and I just saw a DoorDash machines going down the street with no people. I mean, that's very disconcerting to see. I was trying to figure if I could steal a pizza out of it. It was going right down in Santa Monica, right down the main street with no person delivering.
Mm-hmm. You don't need a flight attendant. You just need a vehicle going down the aisle. Let's take a quick break. Our guests are Brian and Tim from the Missoula Montana Airport. Back after this. Arnie, we are back with Tim and Brian from the Missoula Montana Airport.
I want to talk about money for a second. People, whatever you do in Missoula, somebody's complaining that it's tax dollars being taken, that I don't use the airport, I got to pay for it, and that sort of stuff. So tell me the pitch on the money side of things.
So I would tell you no local tax dollars is into this project. It's all federal dollars or local operation dollars. It's basically user fees. So, that $4.50 that you as a user see on the bottom of your ticket, that goes back to airports to kind of pay for the infrastructure.
And what about on the airline end? What's it costing the airlines? Any more money to land at this beautiful new airport?
So we're working with them right now, and when we went into this project, we told the airlines, and we're going to honor that commitment, that we will not raise their rates and charges for this new airport. I think Tim and I have it figured out. We're actually going to lower their rates.
You guys ought to be running the country. Forget this airport.
Hey, can a private company actually rent space at the airport to have a meeting at the airport in the conference room?
Yes, certainly. We will have a number of different conference rooms. We've had groups reach out from time to time, and if we can accommodate, we're happy to help where we can.
This is such a showcase. Like, it really speaks so well to Missoula and to our commitment to tourism, our commitment to travel, business travel.
It's going to be the newest facility in the state.
It's
fantastic. In the country.
You guys should be very proud, by the way. Yeah, you guys have,
and we're proud of you, too.
We really are. It's like, this is so huge for our community.
So how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah.
What do they look for on this information? What are the dates that are important?
So I think the best place is going to be on our website, and that's flymissoula.com. We'll also be sharing any updates to our Facebook page as well. So all of our social media accounts keep an eye on those, and those are on the website as well for any upcoming dates and events.
I just want to say I love the website. I use it all the time. I don't look at airlines anymore. I go right to the website because your data on arrival and departures, if they're on time, or is as good as
updated.
It's totally updated. It's better than anybody else's.
Perfect.
You guys should be very proud. And I have to tell you, when I drive west on Broadway, seeing that airport and seeing the way you can see through the windows, it's stunning. It's like it's an architectural, masterpiece. It really is. And I know how those windows look like wings. I mean, I guess the next building is going to have the other side of the plane. It's something that it's to behold, really. Yeah.
Some visitors from maybe Idaho and Wyoming coming by having a few drinks are going to think it's an alien aircraft that just landed.
He's right. Anyway, thank you guys for coming up.
Pleasure talking with you, Brian. Tim,
anytime.
Fantastic.
I heard that anytime. We'll see you in a couple of months then. Okay. All right, Arnie. I'll see you next Sunday.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to What Do You Know?
I can't wait for the next show, Scott.
I'm excited too, Arnie. If you'd like to suggest a guest, send me an email at scottrichmond@townsquaremedia.com. We'll see you next week. And thanks for listening to Newstalk KGVO,